Hi everyone, it's Jerry. I have an instructive game to share with you from 2003. This is from the Corus A Tournament. On the white end, Anatoly Karpov playing against Judit Polgar. All right, on board we have a Queen's Indian defense. A3 signals the Petrosian variation, cutting out any bishop b4 lines. Now after this capture on d5, black has a pick to take with a piece or pawn. Polgar prefers to take with the piece, wants to control these key central light squares with pieces, wants to keep the main diagonal free of any black pawns. Queen c2, knight takes, queen takes. This is maybe the first position to really speak of. I'll throw it to you as a pop quiz. What move would you play here? Feel free to pause the video. Okay, Polgar's move here is h6, a very precise follow-up. If you're wondering why these other moves, knight d7, bishop e7, or d6 are not played, let's have a closer look at each. If knight d7, bishop g5 is kind of irritating to me. What's the convenient, comfortable reply to it? You would like to be able to meet that move with bishop e7, but after this capture, now what? Take with the queen, lose a pawn. Take with the king, go on castled. Neither ideal. An alternative, bishop d6, similarly, bishop g5 is kind of annoying. Where are we going with the queen exactly? Do we want to move the bishop for a second time? Finally, if we know this move is so irritating, why not just go to e7? Well, this guy can now go to f4 and remind you that there's a problem on c7. Now, it's true, this could be addressed by moving the bishop for a second time, but this is kind of what Polgar's trying to prevent, a situation where she has to expend an additional move with the dark square bishop to address a threat. She is, in a way, on this move 8 saying, this is a guaranteed productive move. I have a flight square once castled, I'm cutting out bishop g5 altogether, and I am in a spot to much more efficiently address a bishop f4 move with bishop d6 in one go. Okay, in this game we continue with e3. We have much more information now about the dark square bishop. It will not be deployed on this natural diagonal. We can now expect it to be fianchettoed. Now I say this because the alternative, d2, is one of those half-developing moves. Yes, you're off the back rank, but beyond that, you're really just a ridiculous piece. This is not the most brilliant diagonal for a bishop. A staring off into space bishop. From here, we have knight d7, b4, bishop e7. This guy stays in a spot to address potential pressure on the main diagonal. In the event of d5, there's always bishop f6. All right, from here, bishop b2, castles, and rook d1. Now, for many moves thus far, there's been this option to exchange bishop for knight. It's a bad option for black. The light square bishop is extremely valuable. These squares would be glaring weaknesses, and on top of that, you would really just be inviting a third attacker, however indirect it may be, on that g7 square. So, this last move is trying to discourage a pawn break, c5. It is, after all, opposite the black queen. There's a lag here with white's light square bishop. The rook's going to d1. The rook, in a way, is less flexible than the light square bishop, so white is, for at least one more move, retaining these options by the bishop. Polgar is lacking space, needs to crack open a file in some way to activate a rook. Let's see how that's attempted. She goes with a5. Wants an open a file. White says, nice try. b5 on board. But now there is a hook for black. c6 is now prepped. White anticipates the opening up of the c file, gets the queen out of the way. c6, and the follow-up here is b takes c6. What's considered one of the better moves is bishop e2, staying in a spot to meet the capture on b5 with a bishop or queen recapture. But in this game, it is b takes c6, bishop recaptures, and let me throw this one to you as a pop quiz. What would be your next move? Feel free to pause the video. Okay, before I put on what Karpov's move is, let me point out what's considered the best move, not the move played in the game. This is considered best. Now, why is a move like this maybe not played? I believe it's for a couple of reasons. One, there's a convenient reply to it. Rook c7, stay on the open file. And the other detail is that now there's this follow-up move, queen in the corner pocket, targeting the bishop and coordinating really well with the bishop on the main diagonal. If we consider these other bishop moves, let's say e2, d3, c4, why doesn't the bishop maybe go to any of these three? Well, I believe it's because this majority, this 2-to-1 majority, could get rolling. So the b pawn is poison in this position, do know. If bishop takes b5, there's this move a4, which provides a square for the queen, ready to land a check and win the bishop. What are white's options? You take here, queen a5 hits, the bishop is dead. And if you take with the queen, black can first scare the queen away from defending a5 and sweep in there next, winning the bishop. In this game, we have bishop to b5. Sensible, right? What's going on here? Welcoming a light square bishop exchange. Bishop on the main diagonal. It's rare that this bishop is going to be worse off than white's light square bishop being on the main diagonal. What else is going on here with bishop to b5? Black can no longer get going with that b pawn. The bishop is planted, we can say, in a hole. This pawn is backward. These are all positional notes I am making. How would you reply to bishop b5? Feel free to pause the video. Okay, bishop b5 is, as it turns out, a big blunder. Polgar, not going to miss this one, plays the best move, and that is bishop b4 check. If you spotted this, give yourself a pat on the back. Nice one move interference tactic. So Karpov clearly had a blind spot to this move. The queen is now cut off from defending the bishop. This was the most forceful move in this position. Yeah, this one was missed. Soon enough, we're going to have a light square bishop cutting off the king from getting to safety, castling kingside. Now, I stared at this position right around here for a bit. I questioned how was it that a player of Karpov's caliber missed a move like this. I believe it's maybe because he was maybe a bit too focused on these positional details that I have already drawn some attention to, this idea to clamp down on this 2-to-1 majority on the queen side, trying to trade off an excellent bishop on the main diagonal. This one-move tactic in the process was overlooked, bishop b4 check. Here's what I think. If you're overly preoccupied with positional ideas, you may be more vulnerable to tactical motifs. Take some time to digest what I just said there, especially if you're trying to improve your game. I think you'll find that that's a very common way one falters. I know that to be the case for me at least. Anyhow, in this game, Polgar does not miss her chance. Bishop b4 check it is. Pawn takes bishop is the follow-up. Bishop takes bishop. B takes A. Bishop out of the way. with tempo and is now in a spot to recapture on A. There is no compensation here. This is not an on-purpose variation by white. The bishop b4 shot was simply missed. The king is now caught in the center. He's on the hook, and he's going to flounder about for a bit in this game, but Polgar never gives white a chance in this one from this point on. So let's see the conversion to this one. Queen d6, bishop b5, clearing the way for rook to c2. In the game, we have d5. What other try might there be here? If knight e5, you could get out of this situation. You could duck a possible queen exchange here. Queen g5 is an excellent move. If knight takes knight, queen takes pawn, the light squares are completely broken down in white's camp. Let's try it here. d5. Opening up the d file, opening up a diagonal. Follow up, rook to c2, look out. Rook e2 with a follow-up discovered check right around the corner. Rook d2, met with queen c8. And from here, the queen falls back to a3. If white instead captures on e6, black can take on b2. And what options are there here for white? If you take on f7, no problem. Rook recapture. If you take on d7, you're going to get mated in the following way. Queen check, gotta block. Rook check, gotta go there. Discovered check, it's mate in just a couple moves from here. Okay, what other options are there in this situation? If instead of pawn takes knight here, you capture the rook, we can have a check. Gotta block with the queen. The rook falls. Yes, you get the knight, but black is still in the driver's seat. This king is still stuck in the center. How do you activate the rook? You don't. And look at this very dangerous a-pawn. Okay, what's tried in this position after queen c8, queen a3, defending, overprotecting that c1 square. Rook takes, rook follows. In the game, we have king takes rook. If knight takes rook instead, we can have a knight drifting right into that sensitive light square d3 with check. In this game, it is king takes. At least some squares are now opened up for the rook to get into the ball game. But now comes knight to b6. This one is ready to hurt. Knight to c4, a big fork. We continue with queen c3. It looks like we're close to either getting the queens off, maybe giving mate. Nope, not going to happen. Knight c4 check. The queens stay on. And now the mate threat on g7 is addressed with a cool move, e5. It looks like this pawn could maybe be won. It is attacked 3 times, only defended once, but black would win a piece if white takes on e5 here. In the game, it's king b1. If knight takes e5, you simply take on e5. You can't take here. There's a pin. And if queen takes queen first, there's no time to take the knight because you're in check. So, in this game, it is king b1, follow up, queen g4. What is she doing? She's being a queen. She has g2 in the crosshairs, and now 3 different checks. If you're wondering which side is ever maybe better tactically, has better opportunities for tactics, just consider the checks. That might be the first thing to check. Check the checks. And right now, there are 5 different checks for black. 3 queen checks, 2 for the knight, 0 for white. Okay, the tactics are likely to favor black. in a situation like this, to be sure. There's more things that factor into this, of course. Just look at the shelter for each king. 0 shelter, pawn shelter that is, for the white king. Okay, from here, we have rook to c1. If the knight picks up the e-pawn here instead, we can continue with knight takes knight, queen takes, and land this killer check on d3. King go to the a file, queen a4, etc. And if the king goes towards the center, you're just asking for more trouble. The rook entering, king here, it's going to be mate. Bishop block, you can flick in f6, next looking at queen e2, queen c2. No defense here. Okay, this pawn is not picked up, rook c1 in this game. Activating now the last piece, rook b8. And from here we have rook to c2. So a nice follow-up. I'll throw this to you as a pop quiz. What move would you play here? There's many winning moves, but I wonder if you can spot what Polgar's next move is. Okay, feel free to pause the video. All right, here we go. It is a nice calm move, no rush in a position like this, simply f6. And with this one pawn move, the position is dead. 3 pieces, I should say, are dead. Queen, bishop, and knight all now bite on a rock. Has the time for this, to be sure. Karpov tries d6. Black does not take the bait. In the game, it is queen takes g2. If knight takes d7, the queen can go to c7, targeting these 2 unprotected pieces. Polgar's not going to fall for that. She takes the g2 pawn. Follow up now, knight to d2. Queen check is met with king to a2. If rook c2, black can continue with knight takes knight check, queen e4 check. Any block here could be met with bishop d3. King would have to go to the a file. And now there's queen a4 check, followed up with bishop c6, and this bishop is going to get to this diagonal. Crushing position here for black. Okay, in this game it is king a2 straight away. Now this pawn can be picked up safely. If white continues in this position with queen c7, no problem. The queen can pivot on d5 with check, defending the knight, and then address the threat against the rook. Rook c8 is looking good. In this game, it is queen c5, targeting the knight, stopping a check, but after just one more move, a simple rook c8 skewer, white resigns. What do you try here if play continues? If queen takes knight, rook takes rook, white could land a fork to the king and bishop, but in the end, this knight is falling, black is up the exchange. All the key squares on this diagonal towards the king are secure. This is the only sensitive square, but the queen can't get there in one move to try and land some perpetual check. Timing is just not right. This one is over for Team White. But it went no further. In this one, after rook to c8, white simply resigned. So, what'd you think of this one? Anyhow, feel free, as usual, to leave any feedback to this video in the comment section below. I hope you enjoyed it and maybe took a thing or two away. That's all for now. Take care.